I'm Nicholas Balsi with JustTheNews.com, here with former Governor Scott Walker. Thanks for taking some time to speak with me.
Good to be with you. A lot warmer than Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to start by asking you specifically about your state in 2020. How do you think Trump can hold on to Wisconsin in the 2020 race?
Well, I think you've got to make it a contrast between results versus partisanship. I mean, I think a lot of voters, particularly a lot of independent voters, which will, as they have been in the past in other elections, will decide it. Both bases are energized, but I think for a lot of independents, they want to see results. This president, lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We consistently see at or below the lowest ever in Wisconsin. We see wages up. We see families doing better, household income up. Contrast that with the obsession that Democrats have had for the past 2 years, 3 years almost, on impeachment and really not getting anything done. And I think that's a stark contrast that'll wave and push independents towards the president's reelection.
You've probably heard from a lot of Democrats that right now, even if the stock market is doing great, real Americans, everyday Americans, don't actually feel the good economy in their lives. Not everybody. What would be your response?
Well, we've seen, at least in Wisconsin, and I think it's true nationally as well, we've seen, though, that wages are dramatically up. Median household income is the highest it's ever been. So when you look at actual take-home pay, with wages going up and less money coming out of their pocket in terms of federal taxes, that runs contrary. I mean, there's a lot of Democrats will say and do almost anything to try and win elections. But I also think the other question people have is, even if someone is saying, well, I'm not making the kind of wages I want to make, is the answer to have the government take over more of that? I think what we've seen in places like Venezuela, a country that was once doing quite well just a short decade and a half ago, 9 out of 10 people in that country are now living in extreme poverty. We don't want that in America. We don't want that anywhere in the world, but we particularly don't want that in America. That's where Bernie Sanders' policies would take us.
Yeah, because if Bernie is the nominee, he's going to be focusing on those types of policies. You know, single-payer health care, early childhood education, forgiving student debt. What do you think about those policies in terms of the effect they'd have on the...
Well, I think they're all, there's a number of things that are important. The current healthcare system doesn't work, but it doesn't work because there's too much bureaucracy already, not necessarily we need more government and more bureaucracy. We need less of it. When you look at housing, the problem, particularly in states like California, is that a quarter to a third of all the costs are because of excessive regulations. When you look at things like student loans, part of the reason why since '78 tuition's gone up 4 times the rate of inflation is because as the federal government's given more and more money, colleges and universities have raised tuition to follow with that. If we allowed more things to be driven by the market, that would keep costs down, that would make things work better in the first place, and I think that's a true battle we need to have in this election.
And when you hear from Democrats and say that the president's conduct is wrong in terms of the tweeting and the way he's presenting himself, what do you say to an independent voter who may have similar concerns, that they may like some of the economic policies, but they don't really like some of the ways that the president communicates or presents himself?
No, and I understand that. I don't agree with every tweet or comment the president makes, but this city, Washington, D.C., is filled with politicians who say all the right things and don't do squat. This president may not always talk or tweet the way that I or others in the Midwest in particular do, but in the end, he actually gets things done that have been of tremendous value to families in Wisconsin and all across the country. And I'd rather take someone who does things. I think actions speak louder than words.
Do you think he will win Wisconsin? Do you think he'll win Pennsylvania? Do you think he can hold on to those states? Michigan?
Well, for sure I know a lot about Wisconsin, and I think in the end it's going to be incredibly close. But I think if the path he's on and the candidates are on stay the way that it is, I think it'll be a nail-biter, but we'll carry the state of Wisconsin again. I think it's tougher in Michigan, but it's doable. I think it's really tough in Pennsylvania, but a lot will depend on the economy.